Welcome in, everybody, to this episode of Discard for Magic, a Summoner Wars podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron.
And I'm your other host, James. And today we have a Plaid Hat doubleheader. We have my friends, your friends, Colby Dowk and J. Arthur Ellis.
Hey, it's me,
Hello.
everybody's best friend.
You guys want to hear about my stress dreams I've been having about the Summoner Wars app? Well, Colby thinks they're about the app.
They're definitely about the app.
I was running a 5K and I stopped to eat a sub sandwich. And then I felt really bad and my wife picked me up to get back into the race. And I saw another sandwich shop. And so I stopped to have another sub sandwich. So I set out to run a 5K and instead ate 2 sub sandwiches. That was the dream.
And he felt bad about it.
Joe, I think you just were craving
The
a
sub
sandwich.
sandwiches represent episodes of The Office.
Follow-up question. Have you ever run a 5K? Is that a thing you'd like to do?
Yeah, like I ran cross country in high school, yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't sure if that was just like a random thing that happened in the dream, or if the random part was the sandwich.
I eat sandwiches more often than I run 5Ks, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's probably true of a number of people.
I would be very surprised if the opposite was true. You're like, yeah, I run 5Ks way more than I eat sandwiches.
Some people don't like bread. They like, down on the carbs.
Man, if you're running 5Ks, though, you need those carbs.
That's true. You can tell that I don't run many 5Ks. I ran one where I dressed up as a banana because me and all my friends dressed as bananas.
Oh, yeah, that's always raises the spirits of the other runners.
Yeah, they were like, what the hell? Who are these guys dressed as bananas? We had a good time.
Why are they making a mockery of our precious race?
When I was growing up, because my dad is a huge runner, still is, and at 65. So when I was growing up, we always went to road races, and there was always a Darth Vader. There was one person who always dressed up as Darth Vader, even in the heat of the summer to run. These are not usually the contenders, I'm guessing you weren't winning your age group when you did that.
Well, we were all trying to go together, and I was definitely one of the slower ones. I think I clocked in at like 33 minutes, probably 35 maybe.
Hey, you made it.
I mean, if you're running as Darth Vader, your out-of-breath voice and the Darth Vader voice, basically the same thing, so it's a win-win.
Yes, it helps the impression.
Who do we think would win a 5K out of the Summoner Wars summoners? Like, who's the best runner? Is it Celeste? Would she be like burn herself out and be done too soon?
Nah, Sneak would teleport up there,
Celeste is a cross-country runner.
Yeah, but Sneaks would cheat and win. That's true. He has the best ability.
Sneaks would wait till Celeste got to the finish line and switch places with her.
Nah, Celeste doesn't cost 0. She has no cost, so...
Grognak would win like an ultra marathon.
Grognak would just throw his opponents out of the way.
To me, Grognak to me feels like the protagonist of Summoner Wars.
I mean, the answer is Ava. The answer is obviously Ava. I don't know why none of you have gotten there yet.
Just fly. As flight. Is it okay to fly? If you can learn to fly, is that legal?
It's not called a 5K.
Just like Air Bud, there's no rule against dogs in basketball. There's no rule against wings in 5Ks.
I mean, Solundar literally has a card called Glinting Speed. I feel like that's a case for that.
Sure, but he can only play that twice per game.
Would he have to kill someone ahead of him to take their spot?
Yeah, he's got to get all his warriors.
There's probably no rule against death in 5Ks, killing opponents, but it's probably frowned upon.
Definitely frowned upon.
So who's last? I mean, is it just Retalis?
Yeah, I don't think he does much running.
He'd fall apart by the first.
Hey, what about Krusk? He's got a big old vehicle.
Oh, I forgot about the
There's
vehicle.
definitely a rule against that.
What if he just attaches himself to a Rust Rider?
I mean, that's a motorcycle, right?
He's got thrusters, too. I mean,
Surely the 5K people have considered motorized vehicles.
what about moto
writing the
boots
rule
with
book.
locks?
Oh yeah, he could have a
Yeah, I don't
machinist on
think
the
you're allowed to
sideline.
have roller
wearing
skates
moto
in
boot.
it either.
But he wouldn't have. He would just have a machinist on the sideline wearing moto boots, and you wouldn't see him. And he would double move. He would use versatile and the moto boots every turn. I think Vlox takes it. He moves 6 spaces a turn.
Colby, I feel like you're making up a lot of rules about 5Ks that aren't really rules about 5Ks.
You're saying motorized vehicles are allowed in 5Ks?
No, I feel like you could get away with the boots, though.
Roller skates? They're going to appear as roller skates. I think somebody's going to call foul.
Speaking of foul, You think Ava can fly? I mean, that's
That's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody's considered that one right in the 5K rulebook.
yeah, probably not. The vehicles are out.
All right, you heard it here first. Colby said Ava will win the next 5K in Summoner Wars. New game mode coming soon. Trying 5K with your summoner.
Just reimagine Magical Athlete as Summoner Wars characters.
Well, we're really happy to have you guys on. It's been far too long, but it's a new year of Summoner Wars, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, we're excited too. Frogs and Cogs will be here very soon.
Yeah, the truck broke down, so they're delayed slightly, but hopefully we're still hitting our date.
Colby, we can't have bad news on this podcast. No bad news on this podcast, okay?
Well, I mean, by the time they hear this podcast, they'll have Frogs and Cogs.
That's true. That's true.
If a truck breaks down, shouldn't that only be a delay of a few hours? I mean, is it still out there?
Joe, they're waiting for you to fix the truck. That's the problem.
I think we're using some. I think our shipper subs out to some really janky, like last stage truck drivers. I don't know, because it's like a guy, and he couldn't pick it up today and deliver it because his truck broke down. So he's picking it up Monday and delivering it. It's like, isn't there another guy? I would think you'd be dealing with a truck delivery service.
Well, you guys have a lot planned for this New Year's of Summoner Wars. One of which is you have a couple new releases coming. Like you guys have sort of teased that there's going to be some native apps coming out. When do you think that'll be fully?
January 15th.
Wait. I don't know about that.
I've been pushing for January 15th for everything. Frogs and Cogs ship out to subscribers. Veldamax promo will go out with that, which I don't think we've told anybody.
You might have mentioned it.
Okay, well, I'm mentioning it again. The SummonerWars.com, the new SummonerWars.com go up, and Summoner Wars native app goes up, all on the 15th. That was my grand vision, and Joe is trying to ruin it by wanting to test the app and stuff.
I think that's something that the app people require, but Joe could elaborate on that.
Yeah, now we will by then for sure, and I mean for sure by the time you're hearing this, there's beta versions that you could sign up to be a part of and give feedback, and it's pretty much final. And hey, maybe we will discover oh, it's ready. We could just release it whenever. But I'm really excited for people to get into those and start getting notifications and getting a nice full screen on their phone and all that stuff. So
yeah, the native app's going to be huge. The notifications, the biggest part. I don't play Summoner Wars Online very often because I don't want to send notifications to my email. I want my phone to let me know.
Is there any plan for any new modes, like a pass and play option, since it'll be on your phone or your whatever?
No, nothing like that.
yeah, I mean, arena mode is still the next big feature that would be released with the Steam version. Building the arena mode would probably take longer than building the Steam. I mean, it already would work on Steam. We just need to do
There's no point in putting it on Steam without an arena mode.
right. We need Steam Deck specific control things and little things like that. But yeah, the arena mode where you would have a certain amount of time per phase or something like that. And if you miss too many phases, if time runs out, it moves on for you. And if you miss a whole turn, then you forfeit that kind
all
of
the
thing.
structure that's needed to play live, because that's what makes the most sense to do at a computer or at on a Steam Deck.
Kind of like how other card games do that sort of thing.
Yeah, like everything else. That's why we ended up doing the native app, putting that before the Steam version, was because everybody already plays that. Everybody that's already invested in Summoner Wars and was in the first edition app, playing it asynchronously. So that's where our user base is with it right now. So we figured, let's do this first, grow the user base a little more, and that makes arena mode, more viable.
Makes sense.
And I don't know how many people hear us talk about Summoner Wars Online and the app stuff all the time and think to themselves, geez, I just play with my physical copy with my friends. But all of it with the goal of helping support the physical game even more and grow that as well. Colby seems really happy with how it's selling in general at the moment. So it's, hopefully a symbiotic relationship between those two things.
I don't think there's any hopefully about it. There's a well-proven track record of board game companies that have said over and over again that having an app of a game has increased sales of that game.
For the Steam release, do you guys have like a tentative timing that you think it will be out this year?
We ain't got
Nope.
shit.
So hopefully sometime in 2024 is what you're saying.
So our latest couple of narrative games, Freelancers and Familiar Tales, they both have Windows and Mac clients. I can make a desktop client easily. It's more about, making the right product for Steam with the arena mode and getting a few little bells and whistles and stuff like that.
We currently don't really have any idea. I mean, I'm speaking for Joe, but I don't think we currently have any idea how long it's going to take to build out that phase timer structure stuff.
The endless challenge with Summoners Wars Online features and stuff is that it's my only project that never has a deadline, unfortunately.
So a lot of other things will come in the way at times.
Yeah, because they have to do with a game that's going to the printer and things like that.
And just games like Forgotten Waters or similar games that have all that integration. It's like, okay, this is launching on this day. It needs to be done. Whereas Summoner Wars is kind of like always there.
Right.
But if the native app were to like suddenly create a burst in sales and subscriptions or whatever, then, that potentially opens up bringing on another person to help Joe.
You're going to clone Joe?
Yes.
Ideally.
He would have all the knowledge.
I have a kid. So far, he's not too interested in board games.
What about coding?
He is very interested in learning to read so that he can learn the code so that he can make Roblox games.
You really got to progress that, Joe. You got to get that moving faster. There's a deadline. Colby said he wanted everything out by the 15th of January. So
15th of January, he's got to be ready.
Yeah.
2024, to be clear.
Yeah. Well, this morning I went through his word list with him and he was still having trouble with a few words like good, some things like that. So we've got some work to do.
Well, with the native apps, are there any, you talked about how it's going to be the full screen. Are there any other new features? And you talked about the notifications.
We're actually reducing the number of features. We're losing vertical mode first off. It looks horrible. I mean, we'll be releasing the 2 new factions at the same time, right?
Well,
January 15th.
You're really... Yes, the new factions will be out by the time the app comes out, and you should have access to the app if you sign up for beta by January 15th.
There'll be some graphical upgrades. It being on the on iOS and Android means that you can subscribe or buy factions through that, which is, for some people easier.
That's the other big thing, is that it's seamless integration. So if you're subscribed or own factions on the web version, if you sign in with the username and password or just have your account connected to Google or Apple, which you can't yet, but I'll get that up, then you'll just have that access on the app. And vice versa. If you sign up first on the app and then get a subscription or buy stuff on there, then when you log in with the same account on the web, you'll have full access. So no rebuying, shouldn't be too much fiddliness at all between them, that you're just on and you have everything you need.
It'll take up your full screen instead of having like the URL bar. If you have a tablet, like a 4:3 screen ratio, there's a new visual ratio for that, which is pretty nice.
It's probably the best overall format.
So the tablet suddenly becomes a whole lot more attractive.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any more sagas. Bistro has written a second saga, maybe even a third, and we want to get those because I know that they're attractive to people who are playing single player only, tend to work better than just a generic AI game.
Will Brub go up in Grognak's saga as a playable character?
Before, yeah, that's what Colby was talking about. Maybe use that to eliminate Brub from Grognak. But yeah, he has not featured prominently in the finals of any of these deck build tournaments. I think you are right in proving that he's not necessarily more insane than the rest of custom deck play.
That's the Wild West, baby.
Blood Summon was already a good card, but then like Call Forth with the Crimson Order made Blood Summon even better. So that's like a big thing now too. And we haven't really even seen that in the finals yet either.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that we consider deck building when we're playtesting, and like some deck building happens, but for the most part, the playtesters seem to focus on the base deck making sure it's all tuned up.
Which is what most of the players are concerned with too at this point.
Right. I mean, we discovered the vast majority of the player base prefers playing with base decks, but the deck building is fun, but it's Wild West fun, which is most card games as they grow, it becomes that. We at least have some boundaries in place with the deck building symbol system. We're able to like catch certain things and be like, oh, let's change this symbol so that this doesn't combo. And
some of it is more theoretical, like thinking about custom deck to me helps just make the base deck better. If I'm like, okay, well, this unit just totally outclasses this other unit, and eventually they'll be in a deck together.
Right.
We need to like make this work theoretically in a deck building world, which just makes the core design better too.
Well, usually the answer is, okay, we need to put a unit that can do that in this core deck. Like the core deck should be as good as we can envision the deck being. Like we're trying to make the best deck for the faction. Obviously we don't succeed. Otherwise, deck building would just be the base decks, but it's something that we, plan around and all that.
Right. Like, oh, the summoner benefits from boosts. Oh, well, they're going to be able to put in Oathsworn. That's going to make them go insane. So we should try to get some decent boost generation in their deck that can compete with that kind of a thing. But yes, clearly we fail. And it wouldn't be fun if we thought of everything, of course.
It's always going to be, like you said, the Wild Wild West. But there has been a push from the community with the native apps for potentially more avatars. Is that something that is a possibility?
Y'all like avatars?
Well, there's been specific pushes for certain avatars that aren't on the app at the moment, I believe.
Oh, this sounds like Tortugatron wants Tort.
Yes, that was one. Other people pushed for like Ice Golem. They wanted Blub from the Swamp Orcs on the app.
And there's still no Brub. I can't have my Brub avatar.
Jackson keeps talking about Brub, and I don't know why he keeps bringing Brub up, but
oh, Brub should exist. I have that. I do have that image file. I'll have to work on that. I think I originally had Brub as like the default, and then I changed it to that Shadow Elf common, and then Brub got lost. He slipped through the cracks.
So yeah, just a couple different ones that people are curious if they're going to make an appearance at some point, or...
Well, even some of the newest event art I've been seeing, I'm like, ooh, I want that as my avatar. Colby, that Storm Goblin event, Overcharge. It's like, well, it's the summoner, but sometimes the event art's even cooler.
But that's not the summoner in that image.
Oh, well, whatever it is.
That's Braca, I think. I was unaware that there was anybody even talking about the avatars. I have to sit down and make them. I'm the one that does that. It's a matter of framing up a bunch of stuff, creating image files, sending them to Joe. But apparently Joe's got some that he doesn't even have implemented.
Just Brub. I think Brub's the only one.
I don't even remember. I thought I had done a bunch of stuff. I know there's probably new ones that aren't on there.
Well, for the Swamp Orcs, I think you have everybody but Blub, and they're disappointed that you didn't put Blub in there.
That sounds like maybe it was a Joe error.
Oh, sure.
Blub and Brub, they're close together. Maybe neither of them made it.
And for the Polar Dwarves, it looks like it's everybody but the Ice Golem.
The Ice Golem's kind of hard to frame up, because it's so indistinct that the avatars are their faces, and its face is so indistinct.
I like how you frame some of them too. Like the bear cavalry is just the bear face.
Yeah, I mean, how do you do it otherwise? The bear's the more interesting character there. But yeah, we could frame up some event art. As far as like Tortugatron, Tortuga's gonna have to wait until he makes his way into second edition, I think, to get in there. We only did the summoners of the first edition.
Yeah, I mean, he keeps pushing for that one.
Yeah, maybe we'll make one and just let Tortugatron use it or something.
Like Colby, I don't even think Colby
I've got
can change his avatar. If he changes it, it's still that. So we'll just do that.
Yeah, I'd probably do that.
Oh, I guess there's no Jexic avatar for me to take either from first edition.
Oh, did I not do second summoners?
I think you did Maldaria because she was in the second edition, and you did Vlock, but I don't think you did I don't need the Jexic avatar. I just think it's funny when now you mention it that I'd rather have the Brub avatar.
But it actually looks like you. Like there's no other character in Summoner Wars that actually looks like a real person that we know.
I thought Jexic looked like Baldo.
No, I look more like a machinist these days, I think.
Well, back then, at the time.
What's going to be on the website? Like, what are you guys like goals for the website?
That's a good question. So there will be the most exciting part, I think, is this like faction exploration area that lets you explore through a faction. We steal a lot of SW Zone's lunch, just make it look better. It'll introduce you to the faction. You can read strategy articles on the faction. You can view the cards. You can, we're doing bios. They're all new bios. They won't all release at once, but I think I think the first 12 factions worth or something like that. There's all of that'd just be fun to click through and explore. But in general, there'll be there'll be news articles that are Summoner Wars focused, and it'll be a cool playground to check out. There'll be little notifications and updates when a faction gets new bios or whatever, and we'll do previews on there. Probably try to get the community involved in writing some articles, and just it's a new focus, a new home for Summoner Wars.
Speaking of the goal of it, the goal is really introducing people to Summoner Wars and helping them wrap their head around everything with it. And
yeah, there'll be a nice visual how to play. In general, yeah, it's when you go to summonerwars.com, which would be the the URL that we push, it'll be a a splash page that asks if you want to go to the website or Summoner Wars online. So it'll be a new way to get people who are checking out Summoner Wars for the first time introduced to both, be able to go in, read about a faction, get excited about it, that kind of stuff.
So the articles that you mentioned, are those the same articles that people wrote for like SW Zone that you're just like porting over, or?
The faction introductions are all new. The strategy articles that Water D did, he's updated some of them. They'll all go through an editing process, but that'll be minor. They're not new content, but they're obviously they're going to get a much bigger stage in being official and being at summonerwars.com. Some place you'd expect to find them.
So there's a chance that we see the article written by Jexic, Brugapocalypse now?
I don't think I talked to Jexic about using that yet.
I might want to update that one too with the new things that have come out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for a deck building, an introduction to deck building article, a mastery of deck building article. Once we release it, well, we'll want to continue to update it with content. When it first releases, I think its primary goal is going to be a place that you can learn about Summoner Wars. So if you're already like on the Discord, probably only the unit bios that you'll be interested in, other than kind of looking around, see how pretty it is. As we go, hopefully it'll be like the new home of Summoner Wars as Summoner Wars becomes more and more successful, and it'll drive attention, and that'll drive us to continue to release all the new stuff there.
in the long term, it will be a good venue to, like, whether it's a member of the community or one of us, to write in detail about Summoner Wars. So whether it's design diaries or plans for the future or strategy or
All those design diaries that Joe keeps tossing out on Board Game Geek, maybe I'll make him put them up over there.
And of course, we'll probably have like a link to like the App Store and Google Play or whatever that'll.
Yeah, it's primarily a marketing tool.
I hear what the website's missing, I think, is an audio format, maybe a podcast or something like that.
I mean, maybe that could work.
you got to keep that distance. You got to keep that,
That independent spirit.
yeah. You don't want to be compromised. You don't want to be called a shill. You don't want to be what's his name? Chris Hardwick.
You think the boat's going to go up in flames soon? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you need to be able to call us out. Like, they're getting lazy. This faction's a lazy design.
That'll never be true.
I heard this tree can't even move. What were they thinking?
Well, that'd be kind of calling ourselves out too, because we're both playtesters. So, like,
well, that's, you have to separate,
Well, I was really lazy playtesting this last one. It's kind of crap.
Yes, Aaron VW specifically is at fault for this faction, I believe.
Well, that's cool to hear. We're excited for the website. Be cool to explore when that launches, and see it transform and continue to grow, hopefully grow the community even more. We have gotten a lot of questions from the community. One of the first things that a bunch of people brought up was, do you guys have any strategies to make the game like more accessible to new players? Because as the faction count continues to grow, it's going to be more and more.
SummonerWars.com, faction exploration.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think the app more readily accessible, easier, advertising it, all of that is going to bring in new players. That hopefully the ELO helps, work better towards making sure people are matched up with players of their skill set, which is, the same with knowledge base. I think don't go in with like this idea that like I need to have all of the factions right now. Get what sounds cool to you. Get good with them. You'll learn the other factions as you play. If you're playing online, or you'll learn the factions you have if you're playing in person.
I mean, I think it's a good question. It's an interesting question that I don't know for sure how it's going to hit new people as it keeps growing, but as the roster keeps growing. But like on some level, a fighting game like Super Smash Brothers can have 60, 70 characters, and it's not a given that you have to have every character's moveset memorized to enjoy the game, right? Can it become like, oh, I'm gonna focus on these couple decks and these are my mains,
It's just not how anything works. Like I don't pick up a guitar and be like, well, why am I not among the elite guitar players? What's the strategy to be an elite guitarist? So it's doing the thing is how you become better at it. You're not gonna like go from beginner to, winning tournaments right away. And it's not what's at fault is not your knowledge of the card base. It is experience. And with experience, with practice will come all that knowledge.
Yeah, well, I don't know. What do you guys think about that? You got any pushback to that, or?
Yeah, use your independent spirit to call us out on that.
I think maybe more opportunity to explore the factions and find the ones that you like at a lower price point. Because like right now you get like one random faction. Maybe if like each month it rotated which ones were free, or if over time some of the older decks, like maybe you could just unlock all the master set, or like breakers, and because for a long time like Phoenix Elves and Tundra Orcs were free, and a lot of people like that, and now it's like
that's a kind of a problem though, because you end up playing a bunch of Phoenix Elves.
or one thing some people suggested is if you send a link to your friend and you have, let's say I subscribe and I have all the decks.
Yeah.
What if like I send a link to a friend and say, okay, you can play the Wayfarers if you want to try them out, and I'll play Fallen Kingdom or whatever.
There's a ton of stuff we'd love to do that is like a matter of prioritizing. Like one of the visions was that we would have a currency system in the game, and as you played and won tournaments, whatever would give you the currency, you could use the currency to do stuff like buy new decks.
Like a free-to-play option, essentially, that some of these other games might have.
Right.
But I 100% want to do what you're saying, James, in that in a private game, if I make a private game, but it's exactly like if I brought Summoner Wars over to your house, right?
Whatever I have, you can play with.
Exactly. So that's just a matter of, writing the code to make that possible. And that I think that is good.
We've also talked about potentially just like, and it's still something that I'm interested in doing. I haven't thought about it in a while, but we talked about just doing like everybody that has a Summoner Wars subscription right now gets a second subscription, give it away.
Yeah, that could be, these could be good reasons to not stress about specific January 15th, because we want to make sure to get all these things right.
Well, I didn't say that had to be. But it's something that we could kind of do at any time. That it would take some logistic stuff on our end to distribute them, and I'm not really sure how much. But it's one way we could grow the user base pretty quickly. But we have to like link it to where it's like, well, you have a subscription as long as your friend subscribed, or we do it like, you're gonna get a year's free subscription or something like that.
Yeah, we definitely want to make it as shareable as possible. That's for sure.
Cool. Yeah, that was definitely a feature people were asking about.
Yeah, private games, you can use any deck that you own. Yeah, I mean that's I don't know how hard that is to implement, but that's for sure great. It's just a matter of what do you do first, of all of the things you want to do.
I think the sagas could also help with that a little bit. If like each saga focuses on a different faction, then they'll at least get to try them in the sagas.
That's the thing that's
Right,
like
right.
currently on my mind is like the next most important thing, because that's also I think going to be huge to a Steam release, is like having the single player have enough.
The sagas sort of have like some Summoner Wars lore in there, and there's been a couple people in the community who are really into the lore for Summoner Wars, and they're curious if you guys will continue to expand on that like past the sagas, or if it'll just be like the sagas.
Unit bios are, will have some lore in them. They're not terribly deep in lore, but I think the sagas will probably be the main place to release lore. Like anything, with success, comes more opportunities to do stuff to appeal to, the niche, the small audience that would care about that. If it's 1% of people that play Summoner Wars, which is probably not even that, the more people there is, the more people there are in that 1%, and it starts to become more viable to do something else around, Summoner Wars and Summoner Wars lore.
Summoner Wars lore book coming 2026. That's what I hear.
I've always said people would like that, but
I don't disagree that people would like it. It's about there being enough people to be.
So what you're saying is we need to do a Kickstarter for a D20 system. No.
oh man.
Honestly, I thought about running like Dungeons and Dragons, a 5e based Summoner Wars campaign.
I mean, if you do, let me know how it goes.
There are some of like less serious questions the community was throwing at us. Like one of them was, if all 20 summoners ran an election for a democratic ruler of Etheria, who would you vote for and why?
Oh man, definitely not Valeria.
Yeah.
Too many laws.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, I mean, she'd be a dictator for sure.
She's textually a dictator, right?
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I tend to see Grognak as the main character of Summoner Wars, and I just think out of everybody, he seems like one of the better leaders. It seems like his team is really going for it with For Glory and things like that. Like he's inspired them, right?
I mean, he does inspire them, but I don't know. Grognak, he's less reckless than his followership for sure. Oh, the bio's really cool. The bio is really cool for Grognak because it gives him a new name. Yeah.
I know nothing about this.
He's Grognak of the Cold Blood. There's two types of tundra orcs, and they often refer to themselves, with their type. There's the cold blooded and the hot blooded, and Grognak that's why he makes a great leader, because he's Grognak of the Cold Blood.
Yeah, Grognak 2024.
Yeah, he's a diplomat.
I don't know if you guys have ever saw whether it was Lark or Colonel S in the community, but somebody at one point made a sophisticated Grognak.
No, I haven't seen that.
We got to get this to you at some
There was
point.
also like a good guy Grog whose influence works for both teams all the time.
Oh man.
Somebody with the sophisticated Grog, he was in like a suit and had spectacles or something.
There you go. That's right up my vision of Grognak there.
I think maybe Saloondar.
I don't know. I think you're thinking old Saloondar. I don't know about this Saloondar.
I don't like that. I don't want to live in that area.
I think Saloondar is the only one that really gets it.
I think that Grognak thematically, like most of these summoners are just like straight up using magic to do what they want. Whereas if you look at Grognak's set of stuff, he really seems to be more like an actual battle leader.
I mean, if you want a battle leader, look no further than Sunderved, though, right?
I like Celeste, but I feel like she wouldn't even run. She would rather just like assassinate the other leaders.
Right. I think with her and maybe Vlox, they're not there for that. One of the keys to being a good governmental leader would be not wanting to be a governmental leader. That's the catch-22 of
yeah, I mean,
politics.
That's George Washington, right? Like he leads the rebellion and then becomes the president. They're both rebellion leaders.
The problem with politicians is that they all want to be politicians.
Yeah, that's true. Abuashi might be a decent one. Forms bonds with like his units and
I don't know that Abuashi might be a little more xenophobic than I don't know that for sure, but it seems like his interest is in his people, I think most elves, that's the case. With the exception of Saloondar, whose interest is in his interest is just fixing the core problem. Saloondar is light and dark. He's the realist.
I guess I don't know why we're missing. We're not commenting on the
You
obvious.
can't have a shadow without light, dog.
We're not mentioning the obvious Sarah candidate.
Sarah, I mean, I think she might be the most altruistic. I think
which is
I think the
thing.
divine side of things is, I don't. We're not looking for a theocracy.
I don't know if she can vote.
Oh, she's not 35.
You said they're all candidates, so. But yeah, the experience thing, worries me.
I feel like if we chose Savara though, her defense system would be stout.
She'd build the damn wall.
But she'd move it out of the way when she got bored with it. Right?
This wall has been here far too long. Let's shift that. Well, cast your vote for who you think.
You got any more silly questions? I think we failed to answer that one sufficiently.
This one's less silly. Like we recently, like you said, Koldak and Maldaria are coming out with the next set, right? The revised versions of those cards.
That's right.
Yeah.
Are there any others that we think we'll do next? Like, are there anything in your sights as like cards to possibly change, or?
You know what? It
Not in mine.
hasn't been urgent. No, it hasn't been urgent. I'm a big fan of Zero Cost Blast for sure. Yeah, it hasn't felt as dire as like needing to bring up Sarah and the other small changes we've made. So it's not like on the schedule or anything.
Right. People bring up Abuashi still, whether we should change his starting setup maybe and lower his strength like you did in the tournament. Do you have the data for season 3 yet, or did you not get that yet?
No, I didn't have a chance to pull that up and see but I mean, for sure. I mean, Abuashi's been around forever, and yeah, we know that the problem isn't exactly strength overall, but it's more about who goes first. He wants to go first more than anybody with his core starting setup.
And if he goes against another deck that also wants to go first, it just kind of creates a weird problem, like against the Cave Goblins or Wayfarers, for example, or something.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so like the coin flip on that Lioness and stuff like that is just so severe.
And I know a couple of the pushes from the community for different errata aren't super pressing because a couple of the ones that people still would like to see changed are like champs. So if a champ's bad in the deck, you can usually just play around it, play the other champs or like play the commons, and it really doesn't affect overall balance that much. But I know like people toss out like Gul'das or like Jacob or maybe Mumway as like some of the champs that just never really see the battlefield a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think our focus at first is, when you go through the effort of printing a new card and people need to, are going to want to get that new card, you kind of want to limit it to the most pressing things. Eventually we might explore some of that. But yeah, there aren't any champions on the list for sure as of right now. The focus would be on a faction as a whole, and usually that's down to the summoner.
Right, because it's about the most we can do with the smallest change. I don't think anybody wants there to be 30 cards that you have to collect to have the most updated thing. But I'm sympathetic, especially when you have a soft spot for a certain champ.
Yeah, or the art is just badass, like Gul'das.
Yeah, and they just don't punch as hard as you need them to.
Yeah, would definitely be nice. It's definitely something you have to weigh pretty seriously because every time you do, it does come at the cost of some people being irritated. That well, I didn't want to buy the high elves. It's like maybe somebody new gets the master set, they want the new Sarah, and their first pick wouldn't have been the high elves, but we have to put it somewhere.
Right. Although Sarah will be updated in the next printing, of course.
Next printing is happening right now.
But of course, there will be a Summoner Wars Master set sitting on a shelf from the first printing, for years, and some store somewhere that somebody will get.
Never.
But I will say we did experiment with the Eater had +2 life or something in the last base deck tournament, so I could definitely see doing more of that.
+15.
I mean, hey,
that would be fun. That would definitely be fun.
I don't know. Sometimes, yeah, I imagine wackier things like that, but I don't think we're running enough tournaments to do dumb stuff.
Yeah, automating tournaments would be another great add to the app.
I think maybe Tortugatron and others asked, like, will it ever be possible for people to run their own tournaments like you guys do?
I want it to be that like there's just always a tournament waiting to happen. It's just a matter of filling it up. Oh, once 36 people sign up for this, it starts. And so there's always slots. You could be in multiple tournaments at once if that's your thing.
Yeah, I do think that is the long-term goal. I mean, right now it's like very cool that the skill ceiling is so high that we see a lot of the same people over and over. I don't know if you guys played F099 on the Switch when it came out, but it was very much like, yeah, there were new races happening all the time. So even, you could eventually get in one where nobody was that much better than you if you just played enough of them. So that kind of thing where maybe it's not like 100-person tournament all the time. We need to still figure this out, but things that are smaller, 27-person events.
We could do the big one still where we manage it and it's got some, different rule or whatever, or it's just like, hey, we're wanting to do a real big tournament this time. But having it all automated and not have to have Joe in there running it would be huge.
I hear that Joe needs more things to do. I hear you don't have enough to work on. So
there's things that Joe likes to do, and I don't usually hear about those as being a problem.
I haven't done this yet because I haven't had time, but we have somebody in the community who's made that draft mode website, and that person is working on a back end to so there is potential to have sort of a third-party API for starting games where people could come up with some cool stuff like that. We'll see once I get that running for that person. If that works out, then that opens it up too. So anything where community can be empowered is another path.
We have another question about like the spectator mode. We're wondering if after games are done, if we could ever make it so you can look at both sides of the hands.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not the only one that's wondered that.
I know. Yeah, I mean, we've got somebody looking at the code for that, but I don't know. It's not my priority. I understand why people want it, but it's not my priority right now.
Yeah, some of these ones you have to ask yourself, like, what do I want more? A new saga, or this, or Steam mode, an arena mode, and then also ask yourself, what makes the most business sense for them to do? Because I want this game to be successful. At least I hope so. I hope the people playing Summoner Wars want it to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of us do. If for nothing else than selfish reasons of having more people to play against, So
we actually just created this podcast to trash Summoner Wars. Were you guys not aware of that?
Yeah, I don't listen, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a hate podcast, like a hate watch podcast, hate play podcast.
I mean, I'm cool with it.
We have another silly question, sort of silly. People were asking how you come up with the names for units and events and abilities and stuff.
That's usually Colby. Colby usually has the biggest opinion on that stuff.
Yeah, I have no opinion. I have negative amount of opinion on starting setup. You guys do whatever you want to do in starting setup. I know it. I know it's a big deal. I have no interest. What something's called is very important.
So is that all you then? Bistro doesn't do that part?
No, Bistro's hands off on Summoner Wars until after something's released. He'll write the fluff text for the sale sheet, and he's writing the unit bios, of course, naming stuff. Every once in a while, I'll throw it out to the group on something if I'm struggling with a good name, or if Nick or Joe were to design a deck. They're often putting names on something, and those names might change, and some of them will stick.
Yeah, I don't even try very hard on that. And
yeah,
I will say tell. Colby is great at I think especially the ability names and the event names and finding the perfect intersection. And lately he's really been trending towards simple names for the events, which I think is really interesting.
I think they sound more that's part of it is the sound. How does it sound when I say that when I'm doing something? I want that to sound cool.
I'm a big fan. I don't know if it's been released yet, but Wade In. I like that one.
Yeah, doing the whole themes around events. Yeah, sometimes I'll spend too much time thinking about it a lot.
So I guess a follow-up question to that is how do you decide which symbols go on which cards, at least at the start?
Nick cares about that.
Nick
a
cares
lot.
about that more than anybody else. Sometimes it has to do with deck building. Every once in a while, it's like, well, let's not put this in this symbol because then it could be paired with that. But most often, it's about play style of that card. For doing water light, and it leans a little more light, or it leans a little more water in what it's doing. Or if it's if it's the most in the middle amongst the champions or events, it gets both symbols.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's process of elimination. So sometimes you do all that, and then it's like, well, I guess this common is light.
Well, sometimes like, oh, well, this champion and this champion work together, so one of them has to be the dual symbol, so that they can be built together in a deck outside of this deck.
Yeah, that's one of those things that it's like when you're working on a project together, it's like once somebody cares about something, I think it's what Colby was saying with the starting setup. Since me and Nick care about it, he doesn't have to worry about it. And Nick also really cares about the deck building symbols and always is like making small adjustments towards the end. It's like, oh,
Yeah, those are the changes I never question.
so I don't have to worry about it because I know Nick really cares.
Yeah, I never question those changes. It's just like, sure, I'm sure you have your reasons. I don't want to hear them.
I don't want to hear them.
Colby, I heard a story about the names that for like Swamp Orcs, you tried to name them like mud sounds.
Yeah,
or something like
I mean,
that?
back in first edition, yeah, I wanted them to sound different things that sounded like somebody stepping in mud.
Are there any naming principles you used for like second edition?
I did that again for the Swamp Orcs. The Storm Goblins all have very, lightning strike sounding names. Thrak, Braka.
Now, I will say, yeah, I do think all fantasy names suck and that they're all exactly the same.
That's an opinion that Joe holds.
That's an opinion that I have.
So Joe's not the one making the names, is what you're saying.
No.
If they all sucked equally, Joe, I think you'd be able to tell. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference between your names and my names, and you did so on this very podcast.
No, I said you're
Mere
great
moments
at
ago.
naming abilities and events specifically.
Yeah, but when you name like a character, sometimes it's like laughably bad, and you know it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll put.
So there is levels.
No. So like some of the forged champions, like one of them, I just named like Ernie.
See, and that's not a good name. So obviously there's levels.
It's just as good. It is just as good. But I also think they're all the same, and I don't care. So you're welcome to change them all.
All right. Well,
which one was Ernie?
I think he ended up being the one that the Helma or something like that.
Yeah, that was Ernie. I remember that playtest that like when we first got it, the name was Ernie.
Also, Colby named a guy Count Spooky for a while, so
yeah, but I always knew that was going to change.
I thought that was Nikki's idea.
I was just trolling the playtesters with that one.
But at the end of the day, I'm like, Baron Daymar, okay.
Shots fired.
Wow. No love for the names that Colby tirelessly works to create.
I was going to ask a question about like what you can tell us about new factions coming out, or what you know, or symbols and stuff like that.
It sounds like you already know about the tree that doesn't move.
Frogs and cogs are all fully previewed, so everybody knows about that.
So the next two after that is Shimmer Sea Fae and the Storm Goblins.
The Storm Goblins are going to be right up there with one of the highlights that a ton of people have as their favorite. I mean, they're just such a blast. There's something about goblins really just brings it out. So literally in like 2 weeks, Nick is coming down and we're going to be doing in-person alpha testing on like 4 decks from the next wave of symbols, which I think are
the Filth,
the Filth, which are
the Guild Dwarves,
the Guild Dwarves, which are light engineering for sure,
the Chosen Grove, and I don't know that we have a 4th right now.
I think Nature Spirit. Yeah, we do. Nick put together that water animal kind of.
Oh, I have not even looked at that.
It looked good, so I think that must be Water Spirit, right? But no, it has to be Nature Spirit.
No, Nature Spirit is Abushi.
Oh, Nature Divine is the tree, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nature Divine, Water Spirit, Light Engineering for Guild Dwarves. So I think they're going to have kind of a new theme, although their mechanics are definitely firmly Guild Dwarf. But these are all just sketches, right? We've only played, out of all this stuff, the Filth. So that's what literally, we're going to be spending like 2 days just playing all this stuff.
There were problems with them the last time I played them, so there was changes made to those. So they'll be.
But I will say, still, no rules cards, still able to fit all these kinds of concepts that were in first edition in with this more robust rule set we have for Summoner War second edition, which is still great.
Yeah, I'm still not doing no poison tokens, no mutation pile, no vine walls.
Prison pile.
As one of the like 3 people who are excited about the Guild Dwarves, are we getting Olden or Bolvi or someone new?
He's called Olden, but he's not going to have Olden's power because nobody liked it. But I liked the name Olden better, I think, and I think people have more attachment to it.
I just thought Bolvi was neat because he was like the original tower defense guy, but like,
well, that's going to be the theme of the deck is tower defense, and the summoner, at least in this. These guys are so early that this could be completely different. There are times where, I mean, you guys know being playtesters where a deck just, takes a complete shift because it wasn't fun. That's the most likely to happen in alpha. And so right now, Olden's ability is that he can return structures to his hand. And then he's got the Master Builder ability from the Forge. So his whole thing is going to be like, setting up these towers, and then when it's in the wrong place, he can pull it back and set it up someplace else. And
I have one question though, because like one thing I think is kind of interesting is that you have these guys called the Guild Dwarves, and we already had some guild units in the cloaks.
Oh yeah.
Yep, and they share the engineering symbol, a lot of them, and we'll be using the guild designation again.
Yeah, and that could be some cool cross. Like the Guild Gunner could be like throwing your turrets maybe around, and that could be some cool crossover.
And then I have written at least one, maybe a couple of powers that affect guild units, so that there's some reason to build some gunners and whatnot in.
That could be super cool.
A couple months ago, I was like, isn't it hilarious that there was a Guild Dwarf whose name was Dwarf? And Colby was like, hey, that was a great name. And currently, he's got Dwarf as a
Dwarf the
champion.
Dwarf is a great name. It proves your theory that all names are the same wrong. Dwarf is incredible.
It's like having an orc named Ak.
Right.
For timeline's sake, are Filth the next in line after Storm Goblins and Shimmersea then?
It'll really be dependent on this alpha testing, these 2 days of hardcore alpha testing, but it's whatever's the most ready will be next.
Now, let me ask you guys an opinion, because just yesterday, me and Nick were spitballing in our work chat about Psychic Trickster. So that's another combo that's coming up, which we have no plan for. But I was throwing out like Sandman Dreams, putting things to sleep, hypnotism kind of, terrifying in dreams. Nick threw out Magician, but I made the point that what is a magician in a fantasy world where magic is a given? It's just a person in a dumb suit.
Whilst the other summoners are doing real magic, they're doing sleight of hand.
They pull out like a bunny and they're like, all right, I gotcha.
I mean, I could see an event called sleight of hand and stuff like that.
I'm joking when I say Jexic, but I do think the cloaks make sense in terms of cunning or trickster, but also like the breakers were resolve or psychic or whatever. And in the old lore, like the cloaks were kind of like rebelling against the breakers. So I think potentially another human faction could work.
Yeah, for sure. That is true.
You give them a trippy name like the Harbingers. That's my vote.
I have a faction called the Harbingers that have no cards in it. And I think it's Fire Divine, and they're apocalyptic.
They could be like Force, like Star Wars type Force ability of like, this is not the rabbit you're looking for.
Yeah, some of that stuff is high concept enough that it's like, who knows if that'll even be fun.
But I do think that our most reliable ingredients for getting a really fun deck the fastest has been a really compelling thematic pitch on the combination.
Yeah, sometimes having some kind of guiding light. The deck building symbols help a lot with that too, right? Because they help you get to the pitch.
What's the other combo, like fire, air?
Yeah, exactly. Fire, air.
I mean, people want Return of Avians, so some people are thinking maybe like desert birds or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Yeah, I agree that we could definitely see a Return of the Birds. But yeah, we're just spitballing literally. Yeah, we don't know either. We're basically doing the same thing that anybody chatting in the Discord is doing.
So that we got like 3 that we're sure about, and plus Nick's water spirit one.
Yeah, well, those ones apparently like were only in the water, and all these fights take place on land, so they need a reimagining, I think, thematically.
Yep, a little bit. I had pitched sort of Dead Man's Chest, Pirates of the Caribbean style. Like they are,
Ooh.
if you look at the crew of that ship, they're human, but they all have an obvious analog to a sea creature.
No, that could be really cool. That like a pirate faction with like sea creature aspects. That'd be really interesting.
But like I said, we're just still brainstorming this stuff, just like we are right in this conversation. This is as detailed as we've gotten.
For the next year, also, do you guys have like any conventions you're for sure going to be at, or like in-person tournaments that you guys have
I think
planned?
Nick's going to Grand Con, which is a Michigan convention.
Ooh, that's nearby me.
Nick and Nikki, I think, are going to go to that one. We'll be at Gen Con. We'll have a tournament there, as usual.
That's always the in-person World Championships.
We'll be at Essen again. We'll be at PAX Unplugged again. We'll be at...
But those won't have tournaments.
Right. We'll be at UK Games Expo, I think. No, maybe not this year.
I will say Nikki is working on setting up a local tournament, and I won't say the name of the store because, it's not set in stone yet. But we actually will have an Ohio physical tournament at some point this year. I don't know how far in advance we'll be able to talk about it, so I don't know the scope of it.
Tournament and organized play is another thing that would really be able to pop off with enough player base. Right now, I mean that's kind of part of the key criticalness of the app and the game's success. I think is that the game is not yet big enough to reliably have local players.
Right, like of course, we can't match like a weekly play at hundreds of stores around the country that the certain biggest games do, but we've talked about if we had a big enough player base, we could do like a tour, like I think Keyforge has done, where you have a dozen events that are the events, and they're spread around and things like that. That would be fun to do if we can keep growing the game.
Is Origins the closest like big convention to you guys?
Yeah, but we don't even go to that one because it's just always kind of been a dud for us.
Feels like people go there more to play games than to buy games. So.
But it would be a great place to run a tournament if we were doing a tour,
But the thing is that the only event that brings players to us to play a tournament is Gen Con. Other than that, we need to drive people to it. So we could have a tournament at Origins, that's convenient. But it's not like we're going to have dozens of people who are just at Origins and are like, oh, Summoner Wars, I'll play in that. No, we need Summoner Wars fans, who are going to hear about the event from us to come. The only event that does the opposite is Gen Con.
You got to mobilize the Ohio community to come to Origins to play some Summoner
exactly.
Wars.
The inverse is true, though. Like, if the convention is small enough and that you can like talk to everybody there, you can also kind of get a tournament going.
We did that once at like some college or something a long time ago. We only had like 8 people, but it was still like.
There's this castle in Ohio that runs a convention every year that's small that I've been to, that I've had a Heroescape tournament for, that had more people than showed up at the PAX Unplugged tournament. So just because I could like rally everybody around and teach the game,
20-person new convention's going to be popping up. It's going to be a Summoner Wars tournament convention.
Yeah, I would love to have a Plaid Hat convention. But, time.
Also, yeah, I think that wouldn't be here in Ashland. I think we'd need to do it in Cleveland or something to not punish people for liking our stuff.
Someplace that people could fly into if they wanted to.
Well, we appreciate you guys coming on the podcast. Is there any place that people can find you, or that people could connect with you outside of like the website? And
Not too much with me. I mean, you can check out the Plaid Hat Tech and Games blog. Anytime I have an update relevant to Plaid Hat, I put it there. But Twitter is a big black hole, so I avoid it now. If you can find me on Blue Sky, I'm there. The internet is moving into a different phase now.
Yeah, I deleted Twitter off my phone. I deleted Facebook a long time ago. Sometimes I'm on Reddit, and there's a Summoner Wars board, whatever you call them on Reddit.
Subreddit.
There's a Summoner Wars subreddit that I get notifications for on there and check out and respond to sometimes, unless Tortugatron's already gone in and answered the question that somebody has.
Yeah, other than that, keep an eye on plaidhatgames.com.
SummonerWars.com.
SummonerWars.com soon. Plaid Hat Podcast once in a while, so...
Yeah, every once in a while we'll do a Summoner Wars episode. So you can definitely follow the Plaid Hat Games account on Twitter and Facebook and wherever you can find it.
Yep, like our stuff on social media. If you see the company stuff, that helps.
Yeah, and if you buy our stuff on a website and they have a review thing, reviews help. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
For sure. Just keep an eye out. When you hear this, if the full app's not out, go on the Discord. You can probably get a link to sign up for the beta release too. So
this has been the Discard for Magic podcast, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
And don't forget to discard for magic.